Okay, we're going to get started. Basically, what we're going to do today is Bilal will be presenting for us today, and the topic will be what's new in NX modeling. And go ahead and if you have questions throughout the Tech Talk, go ahead and enter them in the chat. And then at the end, we will also have a live Q&A. So either one you prefer would be great. So Bilal's our presenter. He's a graduate of the University of Cincinnati with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering Technology. He has a strong background in manufacturing design, analysis, CNC programming, and 3D printing. He actually was nominated for the 2024 MET Graduate of the Year for their contributions as a mentor and enthusiasm towards challenges. He worked on the Formula team since his freshman year and rounded out his senior year as team lead for the Formula Electric Racing team. Bilal, the Tech Talk is yours.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Bilal Said, and as Vicky mentioned, I am a graduate from the University of Cincinnati in 2024, graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in MET, and here I am into my current position as an applications engineer with Prolim. So today we're going to be covering what's new in NX, or particularly in NX 24. So I realized we didn't do a 2406, and of course recently Siemens just released NX 2412. So it's going to be a mix of both of them. So we're going to go over some of the key enhancements in 2406, some of the core design, some of the sketching enhancements, as well as the synchronous delete phase, all for 2406. And then we'll go into what's new for 2412, and that'll also include some of the key enhancements, the core design, the sketch, the threads, and the paste feature, which are two new enhancements that they've made. Now, with the new versions of NX, there's many new enhancements covering various different applications. So for this Tech Talk, we'll be covering an overview of the major enhancements done to the basic modeling environments and some surfacing as well. So if you're out in the wild and you're trying to do this yourself, or let's say you don't have time to sit through a Tech Talk or even watch a Tech Talk, how can you find out what's new for your particular version? Well, when you first open up NX, you'll be usually greeted with the discovery page. Now, in the discovery page, if you take a look at the what's new portion, you can then add in, you can then choose particularly NX for design, NX for manufacturing, or even other applications, as well as choose what's new since the previous version. So if I'm not there, or let's say you just got into 2412 and you don't know, or you don't see any videos of what's been new since then, this is a great way of finding out what's new and all the new enhancements by yourself. All right, so the key enhancements to 2406 was that we got a new Sketch Navigator, and that is frankly the biggest update that we've had, at least with the 2024 versions of the NX. Then we have a little bit more enhancement in terms of the expanded lattice filtering and connecting capabilities. That's more so for our algorithmic modeling and our 3D printing applications. We also have a new Gaussian pore size distribution for the Voronoi lattice structures, and that's again something to deal with our algorithmic modeling and 3D printing. Then we've also improved our efficiency by providing user-driven enhancements for constructing complex wireframe shapes on bodies and subdivision modeling workflows. Now, going right into it, some of the biggest, or one of the bigger enhancements that came to 2406 was the Create Sketch dialog. The Create Sketch dialog now allows you to create datums or datum planes within the Sketch dialog, so you don't have to go do it separately. You are no longer required to create a datum plane outside of the Sketch dialog box in case you have not already made one, and it's rather simple to execute and is similar to adding a datum plane like usual, so you can choose whether you'd like this toggled on or whether you'd like it, off in your customer defaults. And that's pretty simple to do. Within your customer defaults, you go to your Sketch, General, and then your section settings, and then you can then choose your Create Sketch method, whether you want that automatic or manual. Now here is a quick demonstration of using that Sketch Plane Navigator. So here we have this nice little intake head for a automotive application for it. And here I am creating a very simple datum plane without having to go in and choose and select a whole bunch of things in my datum plane navigator or in my datum plane command. I'm doing this all through the Create Sketch dialog box, as you can see on the top left where it says Create Sketch. So I'm just choosing specific points where I want my origin to be, and once I hit OK, now I can just do what I basically create a sketch as per usual. Here I want it to be in line with that particular face, so I'm just going to create a boss, a very simple boss. And once I dimension it, I will then extrude it out. I will also create a quick dimension just so that I can constrain it and make sure it is in line where exactly I need it to be. And then, of course, extrude it out and then begin our, or finish it out, extrude it, and then begin our next few processes for creating either the boss or adding more geometry to our intake runner or exhaust runner. So here is a quick look into how you can use different extrusion functions. So in this case, I'm using a unite function until next. So you can see that it actually perfectly goes right into that curve. So surprisingly, a lot of designers don't really know how to use these features. But if that was just a quick rundown into using both just a quick extrude feature as well as, how to create a datum plane just through your Sketch dialog box. Now, the Sketch Navigator now provides continuous browsing of geometry, relations, and dimensions. Now, this is a very new enhancement or in fact, an added feature, and I think it's going to be very versatile. It may look complicated at first, but it's actually not that bad. So first, I'm going to just go over what it is and what you have in there and what each of these tabs mean. So first, we have our Sketch Navigator. This is the Sketch Navigator. It'll only be visible inside of a sketch, and it will be located right below your part family structure right there. So right there. So you have separate tabs for your curves, relations, which are both found in persistent, external references, and any issues that you may have, and those are your columns. We also have our title columns, our status columns, source, and value. Now, a quick explanation on that. The title is the object type and name. Your status will tell you whether the object is fully defined, fixed, partially defined, relaxed, etc. The source is the origin of the object, so whether that's coming in from a different assembly, a different part, or within the same assembly, as well as the value, so that would be like any sort of dimensions or expressions that are editable. Now, the other tabs, within the tabs, you can create or you can see the curve display status for each curve. So in this case, you can see this black circle is a fully defined feature. It also shows you the found and persistent relations and expressions. So both relaxed and active found relations are shown. And you can double click to put you can put the user in an edit dimension on the screen. So that's this parameter over here. You can also slow double click, and that'll allow you to edit the dimensions and expressions right then and there. It'll also show you any external references that shows the source geometry for the projected or included entities, as well as issues. The issues tab will highlight any conflicting persistent relations and expressions. So if you recall, or if you haven't used it in the past, there used to be a relaxed dimensions button in the Sketch Navigator. Well, now you can have a little bit more insight and versatility by using the Sketch Navigator, which puts in all of the relations, all of the dimensions, everything you need to know about your particular sketch, all in one place. So here is another quick demonstration of us using the Sketch Navigator. You can see right here in the left, you can see all of the curves that are in this particular sketch. And as I add or as I remove different dimensions, it'll change things as they go. So here I can move it up and down. So all of this is parametrically modeled. All of these have certain relations, and we can see which or what the relations are whenever I select a particular object. In this case, an object is just a entity in NX, so a line, a sketch, a dimension, a point. These are all objects. Now here we can see we have our equal radius as the relations that are displayed within that particular object, or I'll just say circle. And you can also look into what our status is. In this case, you can see we have our diameter dimension. If I click on it, I can then immediately go into our dialog box where I can change the values of that dimension. I can also look into our other references. So here we have our concentric relationships that we found. And if I wanted those to be gone, I can also remove that too. Now I can also look into our parameters, so every single dimension that is parametrically modeled, and I can also use a slider, which is a very interesting feature that I'm not necessarily sure what the reasoning is for that, but I do appreciate it because it does make changing things on the fly much, much easier and quicker, and it's a nice visual format of being able to see these things. So here we have our external references, things that are coming in from outside of this particular sketch or outside of this particular model. Or I would say feature is the better thing to say. And of course, we have no issues here. But if I were to remove relations, we would then soon see that there are issues because it would no longer be a fully defined sketch. Now, here is an enhancements to basically finding clones and our synchronous modeling. So as I mentioned earlier, we have an enhancement to our delete face command in synchronous modeling. So now it provides us the ability to define multiple chamfers in a single selection. And this would really help with your CAE workflows for deleting holds, blends, and chamfers. Rather than having to go in and do that all manually, you can now do it all within the face finder command. So you can find exact matches, loose matches, all of the same faces, and it also works without any sort of chamfer labeling too. Now here is a quick demonstration of that. So here I go into my delete face command. Using my face finder, I can then select any particular chamfer that I want to see, and you can see it finds them all, and I can choose exact matches or I can choose all of them. So here we have a short little alert saying that the delete has failed because of, because it is well, some of the chamfers are connected together. So if we were to remove those original chamfers, it would then mess up our model in general, which is why we wanted to select all of our chamfers and then delete the face. And now that allows us to do that. And that was pretty quick now, wasn't it? Now, selection intent. So we now have a feature curve support group edge, or feature curves now supports the group edge function. There we go. And so now it's all about selection intent. So you can now group the edge. So group edge would enable the edges to be grouped and used as input for downstream feature operations. So rather than selecting all of these edges and then making changes to it downstream, you can now group them together so that you don't have to go in and select or group select all of them. It's just enhancement for your workflow and just makes things more efficient. And they're now easy to reference and reuse these feature inputs as well, because now you have this group edge feature. A quick demonstration into this is, if you can see, I have this airfoil with a couple of slits that I need to change the geometry for. And by selecting those grouped edges, or by creating these group edges, I can then use them further downstream to quickly make any changes that I need. So here, now that they've all been grouped in together, I'm just going to blend those faces. Very quickly. And there we go. And now if I zoom out, you can see that it's done to all of them, not just the one. So that's really a very nice addition or enhancement to NX. And that's something I can definitely appreciate, because sometimes when you're working with various different geometries, especially geometries that are very similar but not necessarily the same, this can be very useful for getting that quickly done and over with. And you can see how quickly and how quick we were able to make that change. We can also edit the original slot. So you can see it's running off of a pattern. Now, if I were to change the slot and let it go downstream, and if I go back after NX thinks for a little bit, it'll be able to show you as if, that was the original thing that you did. So that's very good with the digital twin, essentially, and the ability to keep things flowing from upstream and downstream applications, or changes that you make. All right, improving your workflow efficiency for constructing complex wireframe shapes on bodies. So this is very useful for our customers that use any sort of surfacing applications. So if you're trying to create a line on a curved body. It used to be a little bit difficult to do that, but now we have new enhancements to that. So with 2312, we added a line feature, and with 2406, we added the arc and circle feature, which is basically standard construction methods. Like you also have standard construction methods that are available. And of course, the resulting curves on the surface can use projections, which is like normal to the surface, as well as a minimum arc length on the surface as well. And so for your spline types, you can have your user-controlled tangent or magnitude at endpoints and access your UV values in the Part Navigator details plane. The bridge curve with the face constraint now allows for G2 continuity. Previously, it did not. Now, you can also speed up your interactions by these added shortcuts with the NX realized shape. A lot of us, or most customers, don't necessarily use the surfacing a whole lot in NX. However, NX does have a very, very, very versatile and strong surfacing application set. So some of the new shortcuts that were enhanced or some that were added with 2406 are these. So you can choose your cage faces, your cage edges, all using these different shortcuts. And all of these have been all these actions are documented with updated balloon tips as well. Now, moving on to 2412. This is now the most current version of NX. Now, the first thing we're going to cover is a little bit similar to what we just saw, which is our Sketch Navigator. They did add some enhancements to that, as well as they added an assembly enhancement. They've added an enhancement to threads, as well as a paste feature command as well. Now, moving in, this is very similar. We've already covered this. Now, sketch checking, which is the new capability that is that came in with the with 2412 in the Sketch Navigator, is now you can take a look at all of your different sketches and make sure that everything is exactly how you have it. If any of you have used PMI in the past, this might look very similar to the advise command or the advise checker for PMI, where NX will go through a quick checklist and make sure that things are the way how you want them to be or how they are by default. And again, you can customize all of this to your own needs as necessary. Now, the new sketch checking capability alerts users to potential problem areas, and of course, the results are displayed in the Sketch Navigator and as visual tags in the graphics window, as you can see right here. The mouse button 3 on tags allows users to automatically correct the problem, ignore or deactivate the check. And the dialog controls are what is checked, or the dialog then controls what is checked and checking tolerances. You can also activate the tag display and populate the Sketch Navigator by turning on sketch checking icons on the ribbon. Now here is a quick demonstration. Never mind. So, all right, so for some reason it's not playing, but that's okay. Essentially what it was going to show was pretty much the previous version or the previous, what we just did, or what the sketch dialog was showing, which was going in. You can see we have a couple problem areas over here. And so it would go in, we would run the checker, and then it would tell us that, hey, there are some issues here. This is not attached. This is not properly constrained. And of course, we have a partially defined sketch. So it would then show us what to do. And we could also automatically implement the changes that we wanted, or the suggested changes by NX. Now, this is new. So now there's a found relation for slots. Now, a slot consists of usually 2 arcs or circles and 2 tangent lines. And the slot relation implies tangency, as well as, your point on curve and equal relations when applicable. Now, relaxing that slot relation shows the tangent and point on curve relations, as well as it works with slots created by the new slot function and manually created slots. So you can see the different slot shapes that are supported. You can see that, these just automatically recognize slots, so you don't have to use either the slot command, or you can now relax a little bit and know that, okay, once I create a geometry that is very similar to this, NX will then recognize it as a slot. Now, here are some faster assembly and load times with JTs containing symbolic threads. So the NX load options now honor minimal load options for JTs with threaded features. And threads will be loaded only when a component is made the work part. And threaded features are only created for specific components instead of every component, as well as decoupled thread loading from always load PMI. They have decoupled the thread loading from always load PMI customer default. Now you can choose, or you can have it set kind of as the default. It also aligns with the initiative of always loading minimally and staying minimal until full loading is required. This will decrease your load time. So let's say if you have a very complex assembly. In fact, we have an assembly that is maybe about 2,000 to 20,000 different parts. And if you were to fully load it, it took us about a minute. But if we minimally load it, it took us a matter of a couple seconds, actually. So it really can speed up rather than sitting there for hours, potentially. You can speed up and just have it done within a minute or two or less, depending on how big your assembly is. And why would we use symbolic threads? Well, symbolic threads are much quicker to load in. It requires less processing time. That's why you would want to put in a symbolic thread. You can then, of course, change your symbolic threads to detailed threads, which models them in if you needed to do something like a rendering of the product. Now, the thread table validation. Now, as some of you may or may not know, NX does run thread tables straight out of the machinist handbook. So most threads or most things that you need NX to do, or any sort of custom threads, are already there within the machinist handbook. But assuming that you don't necessarily, let's say if you're running a very specific custom thread, then you can add your own custom command. But the metric thread table, XML, is currently updated to the current standards for the precise thread information. So any sort of updates that have been made to the machinist handbook or just thread standards in general have now been updated in NX. So we validated our major diameters, our minor diameters, our shaft diameters, and our standard size and pitch per ISO 261. And we've also updated our minor diameter or metric coarse and fine standards. We've also confirmed the pitch values for specific sizes, ensured that our metric coarse and fine values are correct for larger sizes as well. And we've updated specific cases for GJ B3.4 and GB 5796 standards per DIN ISO 5855-1. And you can also find your standards in your C drive, in your Siemens folder, 2412 UGII modeling standards, and then NX thread standard.xml. Then you can also include your thread decals to improve your visualization of symbolic threads. So in this case, this right here in the bottom left, that's not actually detailed or modeled in. That is just a decal put on that bolt to show a symbolic thread. So you can have that turned on in your customer default. So you can go into your general display and then you can choose show decal on thread face, and by selecting that, it'll then make it look something very similar to this. Otherwise, it's going to take a dashed line and just circle it into how deep that thread goes on your hole or on your bolt. So this was introduced in 2406, and decals for internal and external threads display, and that's currently what we only have. And that's only available in the shaded modes only. The wireframe display shows dashed circles like it did, or like it usually does. You can also choose whether to have it active or not in your customer defaults, as I just mentioned, and you can set your modeling preference to accommodate your session visualization preferences. So if you go into your preferences, it'll just save it for that particular session. It's not going to keep it for every session onwards. So if you're just trying to do this once or just trying to take a look at it, I would recommend going through your preferences, your modeling preferences, and not your customer defaults. Now, the latest feature, and of course the last feature we're going to cover today, is the paste feature for referencing in remapping the flexibility. So the paste feature provides the option to reselect or redefine feature inputs. And of course, it offers two options to remap those feature inputs. So you can reselect, reselect enables the remapping of identical inputs, as you can see in the left side on the left button over there. And redefine offers greater flexibility to remap to new objects, including indirect references. And you can see that on the right side. And of course, the paste feature enables feature inputs to be remapped, including the selection rule inputs. And that covers essentially a very generic overview of our paste feature. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to a lot of these features. but feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions.